In late 1943 and early 1944, thousands of German prisoners of war began arriving at Camp Aliceville in Alabama. They had been captured in North Africa, Italy, and later in the European campaigns, and were now thousands of miles from home. For most of them, the journey across the Atlantic was long and tense. They were confined in transport ships, guarded closely, and watched by Allied forces. Many expected harsh treatment, poor food, and brutal discipline. What awaited them in Aliceville would defy those expectations. The camp itself was located on a sprawling plot of land near the small town of Aliceville. Wooden barracks were arranged in neat rows, each equipped with heating, electricity, and sanitation facilities. There were separate facilities for dining, recreation, and medical care. Prisoners could not help but notice the contrast between their expectations and the reality. The first day at the camp brought a mix of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. Guards greeted the prisoners respectfully, following Geneva Convention rules. Food was served in mess halls, full meals with meat, bread, and fresh produce. The prisoners began to see that America was nothing like the stories they had heard in propaganda. The scale of organization, cleanliness, and order was staggering. Many prisoners quickly realized that the camp was not intended to punish them. Instead, it functioned as a controlled environment where POWs could live, work, and even improve their lives slightly until the war ended. Initial reports from the prisoners described shock, fear, and a strange sense of calm. The psychological impact of realizing they were safe, fed, and treated according to international law was profound. After the first days of arrival, prisoners settled into daily life at Aliceville. The wooden barracks were modest but functional. Each housed dozens of men, separated by ranks or national origin. Bunks were provided along with bedding, and heating ensured that even the cold Alabama winters were bearable. Life in the barracks followed a strict routine. Wake-up calls, roll calls, meals, and work assignments were conducted on schedule. While the discipline was firm, it was far from cruel. Guards monitored behavior, but interactions were generally respectful. Adhering to the Geneva Convention, meals were served 3 times a day in large mess halls. Prisoners described the food as surprisingly plentiful and varied. For many, it was the first time in years they had consistent access to fresh meat, vegetables, and clean water. The quality of the meals alone left many in disbelief. Education and recreation were encouraged. Prisoners could read, write letters home, and attend English language classes. They created small libraries within the barracks and organized cultural activities such as plays, music performances, and sporting events. Football, baseball, and volleyball were regular activities. These moments of leisure helped maintain morale and fostered a sense of community among the prisoners. The structure and predictability of daily life at Aliceville were shocking to German soldiers. Many had expected harsh confinement, starvation, and abuse. Instead, they found a well-run, organized camp that treated them humanely, with opportunities for personal growth and even small freedoms within controlled limits. One of the most surprising aspects of life at Aliceville was work. Prisoners were employed in various roles to support both the camp and the local economy. Many worked on nearby farms, harvesting crops, tending livestock, and helping with general agricultural labor. Others worked in factories and workshops connected to the war effort. The factory work was eye-opening for German prisoners. They saw modern assembly lines, efficient production methods, and American technological innovations firsthand. Some were involved in making furniture, repairing equipment, or assisting in textile production. The scale and organization of American industry left many stunned. For soldiers who had witnessed war-torn Europe, the contrast was remarkable. Work assignments also provided prisoners with a modest wage. They earned approximately 80 cents a day, which was credited to their personal accounts. This money could be used for purchases within the camp, such as extra food, cigarettes, or stationery. For many, the concept of paid labor in captivity was entirely new. Life at work was strictly supervised, but prisoners often formed bonds with local workers and even guards. These interactions further humanized the experience and gave many prisoners a unique perspective on American society. Observers noted that exposure to organized work, technological advancement, and fair treatment left a lasting impression on those who would eventually return home. Beyond work and basic routines, Camp Aliceville encouraged cultural life. Prisoners organized theatrical performances, musical concerts, and educational lectures. Some wrote and published a camp newspaper, documenting daily life, humor, and events. These activities were not only morale-boosting, but also intellectual stimulation. Sports were another essential part of camp life. Football, baseball, volleyball, and running competitions were regularly held. These activities promoted health, camaraderie, and friendly competition. For many prisoners, it was the first time in years that they could participate in organized sports in safety. Language courses were particularly important. Prisoners were offered English classes, which allowed them to communicate better with guards, local workers, and eventually integrate more smoothly if opportunities arose. Some prisoners discovered new skills and talents during this period: carpentry, drawing, music, which they could later apply after returning home. The combination of education, work, and recreation created a unique environment. While prisoners remained confined, their experience was remarkably humane. Letters sent home often described astonishment at how well they were treated and how orderly the camp operated. For German soldiers accustomed to harsh conditions in war zones, this environment was almost surreal. As the war drew to a close in 1945, Camp Aliceville began preparing prisoners for repatriation. Many had spent months or even years there, forming routines, friendships, and a new understanding of American life. Letters home reflected admiration, shock, and sometimes a longing for life in the United States. The legacy of Aliceville is significant. Unlike many other POW camps in history, it combined humane treatment with productivity, education, and cultural enrichment. Prisoners left with an appreciation for order, safety, and technological advancement in America. Many German soldiers returned home to a country devastated by war, famine, and destruction. Comparisons with Aliceville were inevitable. For some, the camp experience had a profound psychological impact, shaping their post-war attitudes and, in a few cases, influencing decisions to immigrate later. Historians consider Camp Aliceville an example of effective POW management under the Geneva Convention. It demonstrated that humane treatment, purposeful labor, and cultural engagement could coexist with security, discipline, and wartime necessity. The camp remains a documented and studied chapter in World War II history, a stark contrast to the brutal experiences on European battlefields.